Copper theft poses a significant threat to public infrastructure, particularly impacting street lighting systems. The removal of copper wiring from light poles can lead to widespread outages, creating hazardous conditions for drivers and pedestrians. Streetlight systems often rely on copper wiring to conduct electricity from the power source to the lamps. The gauge and type of wire used depend on factors such as voltage, current, distance, and environmental conditions. For instance, a typical streetlight operating at 120 volts might use 12 American wire gauge or 10 American wire gauge copper wire, depending on the lamp's wattage and the distance from the power source. Higher voltage systems, such as those operating at 240 volts or 480 volt, may use smaller gauge wires for the same power level due to the lower current. The type of insulation on the wire is also crucial, with options like THHN, THWM, or XHHW being common choices for outdoor applications, offering protection against moisture, heat, and abrasion. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, provides guidelines for selecting the appropriate wire size and insulation based on the specific application and environmental conditions. NEC Table 310.15b16 is essential for determining the ampacity of conductors based on their size and insulation type. When copper wire is stolen from streetlights, the electrical circuit is broken, causing the light to fail. This not only diminishes visibility but also disrupts traffic patterns and increases the risk of accidents. Furthermore, damaged or exposed wires can pose electrocution hazards to anyone who comes into contact with them. The replacement of stolen copper wire is a costly endeavor, requiring skilled electricians to repair the damage and restore the system to its proper working order. In some cases, entire sections of wiring may need to be replaced, adding to the expense and time required for repairs. Cities and municipalities often face significant financial burdens due to copper theft, diverting resources from other essential public services. To prevent copper theft from streetlights, various security measures can be implemented. Firstly, consider using alternative wiring materials. While copper is an excellent conductor, aluminum is a viable and less valuable substitute. While aluminum has a lower conductivity than copper, meaning a larger gauge wire is needed to carry the same amount of current, it is significantly less attractive to thieves. Secondly, improve security around electrical infrastructure by installing tamper-resistant hardware on access panels and junction boxes. This can make it more difficult for thieves to gain access to the wiring. Thirdly, implement regular patrols by law enforcement or security personnel to monitor street lighting systems and deter potential thieves. Surveillance cameras can also be installed in high-risk areas to capture evidence and identify perpetrators. Fourthly, consider using wireless street lighting control systems to reduce the amount of copper wiring needed. These systems use wireless technology to control and monitor streetlights, reducing the need for extensive wiring runs. Fifthly, explore the use of micro-trenching installation for new streetlights. This involves burying the wiring deeper underground, making it more difficult to access. Sixthly, use GPS tracking devices on spools of wire during installation. This can help to track and recover stolen wire. Seventhly, replace copper grounding wires with copper-clad steel grounding wires. These wires have a steel core, making them less attractive to thieves. Eighthly, implement a public awareness campaign to educate residents about the consequences of copper theft and encourage them to report any suspicious activity. The economic impact of copper theft extends beyond the cost of replacing stolen materials. Businesses may suffer losses due to decreased security and reduced customer traffic. Residents may experience increased fear and anxiety due to the increased risk of crime. The social costs of copper theft can be significant, eroding the quality of life in affected communities. Furthermore, copper theft can disrupt critical infrastructure systems such as telecommunications, transportation, and water supply. The loss of these services can have a wide-ranging impact on the economy and the well-being of the population. The environmental impact of copper theft can also be considerable. The process of extracting and refining copper ore can generate significant pollution, including air and water contamination. Illegal mining activities associated with copper theft can further exacerbate environmental damage. The improper disposal of stolen copper wire can also lead to soil contamination and water pollution. The use of less efficient alternative materials, like aluminum, due to copper theft, can also result in higher energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions. To effectively combat copper theft, a multifaceted approach is needed, involving law enforcement, utility companies, and the community. Law enforcement agencies need to prioritize the investigation and prosecution of copper theft cases, working closely with utility companies to identify and apprehend perpetrators. Utility companies need to implement security measures to protect their infrastructure and reduce the risk of theft. The community needs to be vigilant and report any suspicious activity to the authorities. In addition, governments can enact stricter laws and regulations to deter copper theft and increase penalties for offenders. International cooperation is also essential to address the global problem of copper theft, as stolen copper is often smuggled across borders and sold on the black market. By working together, we can protect our infrastructure, our economy, and our environment from the damaging effects of copper theft. The investigation of copper theft incidents often involves analyzing the characteristics of the stolen wire to identify its source. Forensic techniques, such as spectrographic analysis, can be used to determine the composition and purity of the copper, potentially linking it to a specific manufacturer or batch. Law enforcement may also examine the cutting marks on the wire to determine the type of tools used in the theft, which can provide clues about the perpetrator's skills and methods. In addition, investigators may analyze the insulation material to identify any unique markings or characteristics that could help trace the wire back to its origin. Collaboration between law enforcement agencies and scrap metal dealers is crucial in combating copper theft. Scrap metal dealers are required to maintain records of their transactions, including the names and addresses of sellers, as well as descriptions of the materials purchased. These records can be valuable in identifying individuals who are selling stolen copper wire. Law enforcement agencies can also conduct regular inspections of scrap metal yards to ensure compliance with regulations and to identify any suspicious activity. Some jurisdictions have implemented stricter regulations on scrap metal sales, such as requiring sellers to provide identification and proof of ownership for the materials being sold. The increasing demand for copper in developing countries has contributed to the rise in copper theft worldwide. As these countries industrialize and build new infrastructure, the demand for copper wire and other copper products has surged. This increased demand has driven up the price of copper, making it a more attractive target for thieves. The globalization of the copper market has also made it easier for thieves to sell stolen copper on the international market, further incentivizing theft. The use of technology can play a significant role in preventing and detecting copper theft. For example, smart streetlights equipped with sensors can detect when a light pole has been tampered with and automatically alert authorities. These sensors can also monitor the flow of electricity through the wiring, detecting any sudden drops in current that could indicate a theft. In addition, GPS tracking devices can be installed on spools of copper wire to track their movement or recover stolen wire. The long-term solution to copper theft requires a combination of technological innovation, law enforcement efforts, and community involvement. By investing in research and development of alternative wiring materials, improving security measures, and raising public awareness, we can reduce the risk of copper theft and protect our critical infrastructure. The cost of replacing stolen copper, repairing damaged infrastructure, and investigating theft cases can be substantial. These costs are often borne by taxpayers, either through increased utility rates or higher taxes. In addition, copper theft can lead to higher insurance premiums for businesses and homeowners. The economic burden of copper theft can be significant, particularly for communities that are already struggling financially. The availability of online resources and information about copper theft has made it easier for thieves to learn about the techniques and methods used to steal copper wire. Online forums and websites provide detailed instructions on how to access electrical equipment, remove copper wiring, and sell it for profit. This information can be used by both amateur and professional thieves to plan and execute copper theft operations. The psychological impact of copper theft on communities should not be overlooked. Residents may feel unsafe and vulnerable when streetlights are not working properly. The fear of crime can lead to decreased social interaction and a decline in community spirit. The perception that law enforcement is not doing enough to address copper theft can also erode public trust in government. The use of drones and other aerial surveillance technologies can be helpful in detecting copper theft in remote or hard-to-reach areas. Drones can be equipped with cameras and sensors that can detect unusual activity around electrical infrastructure. They can also be used to inspect power lines and other equipment for damage or signs of tampering. The data collected by drones can be used to identify potential theft hotspots and to deploy law enforcement resources more effectively. The increasing use of renewable energy sources, such as solar and wind power, can also help to reduce the demand for copper wire in some applications. Solar panels and wind turbines often require less copper wiring than traditional power generation systems. By investing in renewable energy, we can reduce our reliance on copper and decrease the risk of copper theft. The lack of standardized regulations and enforcement procedures across different jurisdictions can make it difficult to track and prosecute copper thieves. A national database of copper theft incidents could help to identify patterns and trends and to coordinate law enforcement efforts across state lines. Standardized regulations for scrap metal dealers could also help to prevent the sale of stolen copper. The education of the public about the risks and consequences of copper theft is essential to preventing this crime. Public awareness campaigns can inform residents about the signs of copper theft and encourage them to report any suspicious activity to the authorities. These campaigns can also educate people about the economic and social costs of copper theft and the importance of protecting our infrastructure. The implementation of stricter security measures at construction sites can help to prevent the theft of copper wire and other materials. Construction sites are often targeted by thieves because they contain large quantities of valuable materials that are easily accessible. Security measures such as fencing, lighting, and surveillance cameras can help to deter thieves and protect construction sites from theft. The use of forensic accounting techniques can be helpful in tracking the flow of money from copper theft operations. Forensic accountants can analyze financial records to identify suspicious transactions and to trace the proceeds of copper theft back to the perpetrators. This information can be used to build stronger cases against copper thieves and to seize their assets. The development of new and innovative security technologies is essential to staying ahead of copper thieves. Research and development efforts should focus on creating new materials that are less attractive to thieves, as well as developing new methods for detecting and preventing copper theft. The collaboration between researchers, industry, and law enforcement is crucial to developing effective solutions to the problem of copper theft. The enforcement of existing laws and regulations is essential to deterring copper theft. Law enforcement agencies need to prioritize the investigation and prosecution of copper theft cases, and to ensure that offenders are held accountable for their actions. Judges need to impose appropriate penalties on copper thieves to send a message that this crime will not be tolerated. The promotion of ethical business practices in the scrap metal industry is essential to preventing the sale of stolen copper. Scrap metal dealers should be encouraged to adopt best practices for identifying and preventing the sale of stolen materials. These practices should include requiring sellers to provide identification and proof of ownership, maintaining accurate records of transactions, and reporting any suspicious activity to the authorities. The raising of public awareness about the consequences of copper theft is essential to preventing this crime. Public awareness campaigns should educate residents about the economic and social costs of copper theft and the importance of protecting our infrastructure. These campaigns should also encourage people to report any suspicious activity to the authorities. The support of community-based crime prevention programs can help to reduce copper theft. These programs can provide residents with the tools and resources they need to protect their neighborhoods from crime. They can also help to build stronger relationships between law enforcement and the community, which can lead to increased trust and cooperation. The investment in education and job training programs can help to reduce the economic incentives for copper theft. These programs can provide people with the skills and opportunities they need to find legitimate employment, reducing their reliance on illegal activities such as copper theft. The addressing of the root causes of copper theft, such as poverty, unemployment, and drug addiction, is essential to preventing this crime. These problems can create economic incentives for people to engage in illegal activities such as copper theft. By addressing these root causes, we can reduce the demand for stolen copper and make it more difficult for copper thieves to operate. The ongoing monitoring and evaluation of copper theft prevention efforts are essential to ensuring that these efforts are effective. Data on copper theft incidents should be collected and analyzed to identify trends and patterns. This information can be used to refine prevention strategies and to allocate resources more effectively.